This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
And what about our Superconnectivity podcast? And what about that Superconnectivity podcast? Hey, this is the Superconnectivity podcast. And I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend.
Phil Perich.
There we go. See, he's so incredible. He doesn't even know that that's who I'm introducing. It's like the man, the myth, the legend. He's like, oh, who could it be? Who is Charlie going to introduce? What, me? Me,
well, no.
Philip? Oh.
Sometimes you give me a longer intro, so I'm just waiting to make sure you're done.
Fair enough. See, I was actually going to go into this whole thing about how you're just so humble and forthright and selfless, and how that makes you the key demographic to be a superhero. Yes. One of the things I wanted to talk about. I'm kidding. So the Super Carlin brothers recently did a post on The Incredibles. And they are quoting the guy who actually coined the Pixar theory. He has come up to this sort of addendum to the Pixar theory, which is that all the supers were created by the government. And this is why the government is in such a key point within the supers' existence. Why we don't see supervillains with superpowers. Which, of course, is one of these big things in this story that I have pointed out numerous times on the Super Carlin Brothers blog, although they obviously... See, my theory is a bit more moralistic, but not everyone wants to believe in that higher power kind of concept of storytelling. So, but the basic theory is that the government created the superheroes. The government puts out the superheroes, lets them be super, lets them do these things. And then as soon as the superheroes fell out of favor, they pulled back the project. Fair enough. And this is a really good theory. I hate the Pixar theory in general. The Pixar theory in general is not a good theory. I did send you the link on this, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So you didn't click on the link, but because... Phil's looking at me with that blank.
No. I was looking at it. No, I'm the wheels are just turning in my head. I'm like, I like your theory, but it's like, why aren't they pulling a government paycheck then?
Well, they are. If you notice that, no, they're not getting a government. They obviously did get a government paycheck. Once they're in the super, they still have to get jobs, and they still have to get work. And of course, one of the key points about this, the key is the thing I obviously noticed is that the supers never really were necessary. Because as soon as the supers disengage, it's not like suddenly there's supervillains that are taking over the world. Unless this is some kind of weird what was that Millar book where the supervillains secretly took over the world but no one noticed? They did a movie about it with Angelina Jolie where they were bending bullets.
I know what you're talking about, and I can't.
Yeah. It's not Hitman; it's a different book. But anyway, But unless the villains were always in charge of the government, the whole point is that essentially there were no supervillains to take over the world. The supervillains never had the real ability to take over the world because there were no supervillains. And the reason why there were no supervillains in this theory is that it's because the government was the one giving people superpowers. And because the government gave these people superpowers, and obviously they did a lot of rigorous psychological testing to make sure that only good people got the powers. Because let's be honest here, how many stories in the superhero genre start with, well, the government gave him these powers, and then he kind of went nuts with them. There's a few of those. Like if only we could create a perfect killing machine. How could that help? How could that possibly go wrong?
No.
If we just You know, how could creating a perfect killing machine go wrong? Oh.
But no, I looked it up. The movie, I should have remembered this, was Wanted.
Wanted. There we go. Yes. There's also a comic book series, which I understand is much better. I've seen a few scenes from the Angelina Jolie, some other dude that's actually the hero of it film, and I can see how the comic could very easily be better.
Well, wasn't that the case usually that, like, in most genres that the original material is usually better?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but I mean, I think sometimes stuff loses. You can lose stuff in translation.
Well, what got lost in translation is the entire plot. When the entire plot gets lost in translation, then, yeah, it's like, oh, what if there was a secret group of assassins that could bend bullets? It's like, if you thought that was, I don't think that was actually the plot of the book. I think that was just an aspect of the book. I mean, to give you a sense, it's sort of like the idea is and again, limited understanding of the book as well. It is because that's what you get. Superconnectivity, books I haven't read, films I haven't seen, that I'm going to tell you about. Oh. And why they're wrong and I'm right, because that's the intellect of the professor. No, but as I understand, it's the idea of a, sort of a bullseye type character whose son is also a bullseye like character, gets recruited into the Assassin's Guild, and then they find out about the super secret organization of supervillains that actually have been controlling the world since they, essentially hypnotized all the superheroes to forget who they were. Hey, didn't that happen in a Marvel book recently? They all rehash everything.
Oh yeah,
but that's DC. If it's DC, they stole the idea. Everyone else, it's no homage. And then the basic crux of it is that the villains who took power don't necessarily want to still be just kowtowing to someone else's social order. This is essentially what we see in the Gotham episode of it doesn't matter that Penguin's the mayor or that Commissioner Gordon's the chief or he's not the commissioner, but Captain Gordon is running the city. Although now we know how he got elected commissioner. You can see that at the end of that episode where we know that everyone is like it's like the Kingpin, except not evil or less evil. But it does strike you in the this new addendum to the Pixar theory that the superheroes were always a publicity stunt. They were never really necessary. That basically the creation of superheroes was a reaction that basically they had this ability to create superheroes. And rather than weaponizing it, because they realized how dangerous that weapon would be, they decide to simply monetize it, which is this very fascinating quality of this, because one of the harshest criticisms of the Incredibles story is that it is, in fact, a objectivist fantasy. That it is essentially Atlas Shrugged with superheroes. That the government is incompetent and other, bureaucracy is bad, but the natural power of the individual is being oppressed by the man, and yada 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 yada. Yeah, it's that entire objective. It turns all of objectivism on its head, and honestly, it becomes this great critique of objectivism, because if the government actually both created and then told the heroes to stand down, it not only says that the government that the collective working together not only found a better way to handle things, actually created the supers, so the supers are not sort of just naturally who are being oppressed by the man. They are indications of the man, creations of the collective. empowered by the collective, and then told to stand down by the collective. And then because the collective was smart enough to be real careful about who we give these powers to, like Erskine in the first Avenger, we can't just pick a guy because he's strong, because a strong guy isn't going to know what to do with these powers. You need to find someone who knows the importance of being righteous. You know, you have to have that Erskine there to make sure that Steve Rogers gets that serum, not McClinton, I believe his name was, Protocide. Because Protocide's the guy they wanted, the freaking, you know, guy who killed his commanding officer. Like, that shouldn't have been a red flag. Actually, no, I think he might have just gotten into a bar fight. I forget exactly what he did. I don't think he was a Dirty Dozen kind of guy yet, but he was certainly on that path of a guy who'd been smacked around. And, you know, he was the guy that the general wanted. But, of course, you know, Erskine said, no, you got to give this to Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers is the guy. So essentially what they did was they only picked Steve Rogers' and they only gave them superpowers. So they were all good people. Now, you did have tech-based heroes, but you also had tech-based villains. Because it does seem that there were independent heroes who then registered with the government and to do their tech-based thing. Because it clearly... I don't know if it was Gazer Beam or there was a couple guys there, but there were a couple guys that it seemed like they were actually just tech guys. Because of course, Buddy even says you don't need superpowers to be a superhero. There were tech, so it tells you that there were your Tony Starks of the world who were at least operating within the confines because they understood the need for it. Which again speaks to this idea that the government was smart enough, and of course. That then the government, if there was ever a rogue superhero, they had several superheroes that they could use to utilize extreme prejudice as needed. And while the heroes might not have killed, once someone's in custody, that's up to the government. Yeah, you know. Davos, he's getting that needle. I'm just going to tell you that at the end of Iron Fist. You know, that's the thing is like they, you know, which is why maybe, you know, we just finished Iron Fist, me and Maz, so definitely look for the last episode ever of the Cage Cast. The government can put that needle in your arm and call it a day. It's in their ability. Okay. But yeah, I found this a very interesting aspect. Now, my own opinion is that that the government couldn't possibly have taken into all of the factors to ensure heroes were good, and also overlooks the entire possibility of power corrupting. Essentially, if the government is that good, if the collective is that good, then the entire objectivist argument becomes so ludicrous, but then the anti-objectivist argument is just as ludicrous. That's the problem with it, is that then that anti-objectivist argument is just as ludicrous because it's saying, no, the state can do it. And we already know the state is run by people. And people are flawed and will fail. Basically, any human in charge of this thing is going to fail. You know, it doesn't matter how close you are to God. Even if you are still a human, you are going to fail. You are not a saint. You are not perfect. You do not have the power to work miracles, and you shouldn't be trying to. And yes.
Do you think? I mean, maybe that the government isn't so much creating the powers as like when an accident happens and you know, like 60s Marvel, you know, somebody gets bitten by a radioactive spider, they're like, oh well, you know, you're under our purview now, the government's purview.
Yeah, and that is sort of my theory.
Okay.
My theory is that, and it goes a little deeper than that, because my theory is only people deserving of powers have superpowers. And only people that can handle superpowers get to keep superpowers. And so essentially, if you stray from the heroic force, if we will, you know, because, hey, you know, DC came up with the Speed Force. It's a great idea. Let's expand it. The heroic force, to me, is the thing that grants all powers. There has to be this thing that says you are deserving of power. you are going to be you are the person who's going to understand great power is great responsibility. And so when you have that randomized distribution of power, and it does seem to be somewhat randomized. When you have randomized distribution of power, there has to be that for it to only go to noble souls requires that there be some direction behind it, that it be a heroic reason. Now, and not for nothing, we do see that clearly a lot of heroes are not the sharpest bulbs in the not the sharpest, not the brightest bulbs in the garden shed, as I like to say. Mm-hmm. And you know, a lot of them do get sucked into wind turbines and things like that because, you know, they don't know the no capes rule. But you know, I guess there is the possibility that if you were a supervillain and you got powers, you would probably wind up blowing yourself up almost immediately because you just couldn't handle the power. Which, of course, not for nothing, happened to a lot of classic Silver Age villains. You know, like when Absorbing Man tries to absorb all the power of Earth and he just disintegrates. Of course, he came back because, you know, he can't leave a Crusher Krell out in the Omniverse. That's not how you deal with a Crusher Krell. Or Creel. I forget what we agreed his name was. I think it's Creel now.
I think it's Creel. I think that's how they pronounce it on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., didn't they?
It's Creel, yeah. Creel. I don't know why. I don't know why I pronounce it one way and other people pronounce it the other way. And I also never know why I pronounce it. I continue to pronounce it wrong when everyone else is pronouncing it right. But we move on from there. Yeah, so I do think that there has to be a higher power involved in it. Otherwise, it's just as ludicrous of a fantasy as objectivism is at its core. You know, it's either, you know, if anything, if you want to go with the government conspiracy theory, then it's as ludicrous of a story as Atlas Shrugged is a ludicrous. It's as ludicrous of a story against objectivism as Atlas Shrugged is a ludicrous story in favor of objectivism. And speaking of objectivism, because you reminded me of an Alan Moore reference. Oh
boy.
Representative Ocasio-Cortez recently quoted. Well, they say she quoted the Watch, and it's interesting how they phrase it. Because they phrased it. She quoted Watchmen, or she quoted Alan Moore's Watchmen. Made the point that the congressmen aren't locked in here that she's not locked in with the congressmen, they're locked in with her. Because some congressmen had said, Ocasio-Cortez, she's such a female and things, you know, as they do on the Republican side of things. And she made this quote. And then, of course, all the hipsters got all excited. But the person she's quoting in that, you're not locked in here with me.
Is Rorschach,
who, again, speaking of objectivism, is Alan Moore's own critique of objectivist ideology as embodied by Dicko's The Question, for whom a rich man must be moral. So it goes to, honestly, it's one of these things where it's a great line. First off, it's a great line. And she probably mostly knows it from the Watchmen film. Because who actually reads Watchmen? That is such a
well, I saw somebody online too saying, do you think she tweeted that out, or could it have been one of her staff?
I mean, it could have been one of her. I mean, honestly, I usually assume it's one of her staff. So she does do a lot of social media. You know, that's always this thing with the idea that there are social media people. That's a job. It confuses and enrages me because obviously it's a job I'd love. I think it'd be a job I'd be great at, but how do you even get that? That sounds like such a nepotism job.
Right place, right time.
You know, Johnny only spends time on Facebook. What should we do with him? Have him come to the company. I'll make him my social media executive. And it's, you know, it's like when they used to give Jethro jobs at the bank. you know, on the Beverly Hillbillies. Those who don't remember the Beverly Hillbillies, you know, they had an idiot nephew who, for whatever reason, Uncle Jed was real fond of. But I guess maybe
His family.
Yeah, and although, because he's actually Jethro's great uncle, because I guess Pearl calls Jed Uncle Jed too. Although, really, I always thought Pearl and Jed were probably contemporaries. But then again, my nephew is the same age as me, so I guess that makes sense. So yeah. So basically, it's a big family. Cousin Pearl is Jed's niece, and then which makes her Ellie's cousin. So yeah, family trees, and that's something about Appalachia in there. I'm not making any kind of negativity statement towards Appalachia, because as much as people will say that, you know, the Beverly Hillbillies are meant as a parody of Appalachia, I've always felt that Uncle Jed, at least, as the central Appalachian character, is meant to be a person who is shown to be wiser and more intelligent than those city folk around him. That's always my take on Uncle Jed. That's why I don't see him as a negativity. Although, obviously, I can understand how his embrace of backwoods culture can be seen as meant to be a negative towards all of Appalachia. As to Jethro's just Jethro, and yeah, he's a bad role model. But I never think they ever made him seem like a good role model. But they would give Jethro jobs. If they did a remake of the Beverly Hills, Jethro their social media. So that's my opinion on social media coordination. But it is a real job, and actually, I'm sure there's a lot of people that work real hard at it. It's like, you don't even know what I go through every day trying to craft a freaking meme that both incorporates Calgon and is going to get retweeted. That's going to be, oh, the people at Calgon who want to just say Calgon, take me away. It's like, okay, yeah, I know you had one great hit in the 80s, and that's all you want to do anymore. But you want to sell your product nowadays, and I've got to sort of craft that mess of reality into something. So, you know, tip of the hat to the social media coordinators out there. What were you saying? Oh yes, Ocasio-Cortez. Oh yeah, so this got tweeted by her, and it is a great statement, because it is a statement, and for what it's worth, it's the statement that you realize your attacks at me are powerless, because Ocasio-Cortez is a freaking superhero, as was Rorschach. And that you think just because I don't have my mask on today that I'm suddenly not Rorschach. You're kind of missing the point of being Rorschach. It's like if you put Bruce Wayne in prison and told everyone that he was Batman, he doesn't stop being Batman just because now you know he's Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that means you could kill Robin, but you could have killed Robin anyway. You know, it's not like he has a lot of close. You could kill Alfred. That would really. Although honestly, killing Alfred kind of would work out like killing Aunt May for the Kingpin worked out. Which is that, you know, it's like if you're gonna go there, you realize that he's been holding back this whole time, and so if nothing else, I think that, and this is my honest statement on Ocasio-Cortez. I think that every time Republicans attack her, they're just electing her president.
Oh.
Honestly, I don't think. First off, I hope she doesn't run in 2020.
No, I think I saw. I'm assuming this is true, but I thought I saw somebody on Twitter or something saying she's not old enough yet, but in 6 years, well, I think she's 29 or something. So in 6 years.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank God for the Constitution. But yeah, no, but they're going to elect this woman president because she's going to be Speaker of the House after Nancy Pelosi steps down. And no, because she's just that popular.
Yeah,
she just has that much political strength, and the Republicans just keeping feeding into her, you know, because they don't understand they're not popular, and when an unpopular person comes out against something that is popular, it just makes that popular thing become more popular.
Yeah,
it's called harnessing hate. Something that they came up with in Married with Children years ago. where they wanted the Bundys to put on their lawn a bunch of campaign stickers that the Darcys opposed. Well, not Darcys, they were still the Rhodes at that time. The Rhodes opposed to harness the hate of the community against the Bundys towards these political causes. And because Republicans like Steve King, what's wrong with white supremacy? Do not ever use that as a drop, Philip. I'm saying that right now.
I won't.
Okay, this is no I love Ben Reilly. That is not something I enjoy. But, when you say that,
you're safe.
I love Ben Reilly. That's a fun joke because she did say it ironically. She was actually mocking you, I believe, because you love Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You can love Ben Reilly, though. This comic books is a big enough world. You can like what you like. You do love Ben Reilly, Philip. Anyway. But when guys like Steve King come out against Ocasio-Cortez, it just reminds people, I don't want to be with that man. I don't want to be associated with these people that are that comfortable being horrible, horrible human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to elect her president. They're at least going to elect her Speaker of the House, and I expect in 2 to 4 years. In fact, I expect after there's a Democratic president that Nancy Pelosi will step down, either in 2 to 4 years, as she says. Of course, 4 years isn't, but she will step down, and Ocasio-Cortez will be the new Speaker of the House. Just that simple. And of course, but that's the problem with social media is people think they understand it, like me, as I deride against social media gurus out there, but they don't, and they fail miserably. But that's Ocasio-Cortez. Moving on to Samuel L. Jackson, who has been talking about the new Captain Marvel film, and has suggested that Captain Marvel can time travel. What do you think of this, Philip?
It's interesting. I was thinking, so are they going to do like a Captain America thing with Captain Marvel, except instead of being frozen in ice, she's just going to like jump forward through time?
Oh, that's an interesting take on it. I hadn't actually thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
See, my actual take on Captain Marvel and time travel, and saying that she can time travel, was that Superman can time travel. The Flash can time travel.
Yeah.
Only one of them does it to the detriment of everybody. Essentially, Captain Marvel time traveling, it's a power she theoretically see my take on it was that it's a power she theoretically has. And to that extent, I did look this up because I was concerned about this and the term a tesseract. Because as we know, in the 1940s, we are calling the cosmic cube a tesseract. But of course, we don't think about a tesseract in that way. At least I didn't think we did that long ago, because we mostly think about the tesseract as something from it's most popularized by A Wrinkle in Time as a method of transversing space and time. But in fact, the term was first used by Charles Howard Hinton. Yes, I'm reading off my phone right now. In 1888, in his book, A New Era of Thought, from the Greek tesserissus actinus. So it's from tesserissus actinus, meaning 4 rays, referring to 4 lines from each vortex into other vertices. Now, and just to give you that little World War II reference, the term was first used in science fiction. Let me find it. In popular culture, He Built a Crooked House by Robert Heinlein, in 1940 science fiction story featuring a building in the form of a 4-dimensional hypercube. So the word existed in a scientific or in a super scientific context by the 1940s, so it makes sense why Red Skull would call it Tesseract. And of course, you can always go into why the Asgardians Tesseract, even though they probably would have had a different word for it in 1880. Or unless, and here's your big, it's called, or Hinton called that a Tesseract because he learned about the Tesseract from the existence of the Tesseract in Norse mythology or Greek mythology, because, as it will turn out, we'll get the Greek gods in Avengers 4. Hercules, Unbound. Maybe not.
I was trying to work this out in my head. I'm like, okay, let's see, time travels. So is she already in the present? Because I mean, at the end of Infinity War, Sam Jackson's hitting the pager. So
yeah, well, she has to be somewhere. Yeah.
Or I was thinking, what if there's some kind of accident and she's like stuck in the time stream, and I guess hitting this button will bring her out, but it's always like, oh well, we don't know what bad thing's gonna happen. You know, if you rip her back out of the time stream, you know, you could like destroy half the universe. And, you know, well, at this point, Sam Jackson's like, well, half the universe is gone now anyway, so let's take the chance.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's a great argument. You know, well, the only thing is, first off, the idea of Captain Marvel being trapped in the Speed Force sounds a little bit too DC to me. And to make a point, they actually had this statement that the writers of it did not want Captain Marvel's story to seem too much like the Green Lantern story. So I can't imagine them instead just taking the Flash's story and putting it onto Captain Marvel. My take on it really is just that it's a power they will discuss that she has, but she doesn't use. Because unlike Superman in Superman 1, actually listens to the warnings, don't go back in time. Remember Superman 1?
Yeah.
The original John Donner one. John Donner? Robert Donner. Richard Donner. His last name was Donner. He didn't get eaten at the Donner party. That's all I know. Richard Donner has Superman's dad.
Jor-El.
No, actually, I was trying to think of the actor. Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Brando, yes. Brando, which actually, fun fact, apparently that was the movie officially that Batman was seeing when his parents were killed. Brando film.
Oh, okay.
Although, obviously, with sliding time, it can change every day. That was just something fun from CBR recently and Brian Cronin, where they were saying, because it was like, when did Mask of Zorro first become the film they were seeing?
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah. And I guess the first time they actually mentioned it, mentioned what the film was, Bruce Wayne says they had just seen a film with Marlon Brando. And Brian Cronin made the point that he, you know, part of his mind kind of thinks, boy, I hope it wasn't Last Tango in Paris. But but based on the time and that On the Waterfront would be the most likely film for them to have actually seen, based on sliding time. You know, but prior to that, it would have been more appropriate in the 1930s that they might have seen an actual Zorro picture, you know. But it was actually a movie. It was actually, they were coming from a movie, which I actually thought it was always the opera earlier. I thought in the early ones it was going from the opera, because that seems like something rich people would do. But it was a movie from the very first inception.
Maybe, and even in that first Christopher Nolan, you know, Batman Begins movie, that's where they were at some kind of opera or something. But
yeah, an opera. Oh, leave it to Nolan to screw up canon. That must be where I got that idea. They were at the opera from that dang Nolan. Ugh, worst Batman ever.
But yeah, I think a lot of the iterations, at least for the last couple decades, I think they've been coming from some version of Zorro. Yeah, because
Yeah.
inspiration, mask, and cape. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I like the idea that it was out on the waterfront a little bit better because it's more about social justice. Although I guess Zorro is about social justice, and actually Zorro is about a very rich person who uses his wealth and power to just attack other rich people to help the poor, rather than just advocating for political change like we do in Zorro the Gay Blade. Disney's entry into the Zorro's canon. With George Hamilton. That's still my favorite Zorro. I'm sorry, fight me, nerds. I saw it as a kid, and it's if you can get beyond just the fact that it has a very effeminate gay man as a superhero, it's actually a fun story. And you have George Hamilton playing. Well, he's playing Spaniards. I mean, they're Spaniards living in Mexico, so. I think you have some wiggle room when it comes to Zorro on that, but he's no Antonio Banderas. Antonio Banderas is great, but then they made Odin his father's the first Zorro, so you can't win for losing in these things. They keep on casting white people as Hispanic people, Englishmen as Hispanic people. Anyway, moving right along. We are way off topic here, so. The thing that I think is most important in this, the key that I think is going to be most important in this, is that the Tesseract is going to be in Captain Marvel. Suggesting that the Tesseract is what's going to give Captain Marvel something.
I just wonder, I didn't see the original quote, but if it's not per se a time travel power, maybe there's an accident with the Tesseract and she just gets thrown forward in time.
I mean, that's a possibility, but again, I just think the idea. Well, first off, the Tesseract isn't supposed to let you travel in time.
It's going to be a combination of Tesseract and Kree something or other. Yeah,
well, there's going to be the Kree thing. Here's what I'm going to say. I think Here's what I'm going to say. I think when she first comes to Earth, when she's got her blue and green uniform, we are going to be getting a supercharged Captain Marvel, but she's not going to be Captain Marvel level Captain Marvel. I think what you're going to get is that basically she was part of some kind of first, Nathaniel Richards experiment with super speed space. She got to be the first human to try this because, why would we send a monkey when we could send a human woman? I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
then she gets lost in Kree space, yada yada yada.
Yeah, what was it? The 70s or 80s when she was hanging with the X-Men for a little bit, and I think it was the Brood who experimented on her. That's where she got those binary powers. So
so I think we're going to be getting the idea that she has the binary powers to start, and then she's going to get the full-on Captain Marvel once she comes to Earth. And Samuel L. Jackson's going to say, there is something that might help. And I think that's where she gets her power. Is like, then they're going to say it's been dormant for years, but, you've already got something going on. Sort of like when Samuel Stern sends to Abomination's character, or the actor or the character who becomes the Abomination. There's clearly something going on inside you. If I give you this, it might turn you into an Abomination. But apparently, Samuel L. Jackson doesn't care about that kind of level of informed consent. But then again, he's not a doctor. He's not required to give informed consent. He's just like, well, will this fix the problem? Let's see if this works. And so I think she's going to utilize the Tesseract at some point, and it's going to basically up her power level to power cosmic level. And then she's going to be because we see that we don't see her destroying all the ships until she's in the red and blue outfit. And I got to imagine that's maybe even a reference to Go Captain America, Lost at Sea. At this point in history, anyway. And I think the idea of her being able to travel in time is going to be related to the idea that someone's going to say this can open up a door in space. It can also open up a door in time.
I just wonder if she gets thrown through time or time travels or whatever, she's going to be basically that woman out of time. I wonder if there's going to be like a bond between her and Captain America, because he's going to be like, I was that guy out of time. I was that soldier out of time, and now so are you.
Yeah.
So help her acclimate.
I mean, it's entirely possible, although honestly, the difference between the 90s and the teens is not as much as the 40s to the aughts.
I know, but internet,
Well, we know what it is. It's ironic because it's the exact amount of time that had passed between the 40s and the 60s.
Yes.
So it's like, oh my goodness, the Earth is slightly changed. Now
there's some damn hippies.
No, I mean it's no. Actually, here's what I'll say: is the difference between the 40s and the 60s was actually pretty stark.
Fashion.
Well, not just fashion, but just, oh, wow. So people are eating at the same lunch counters now, or at least trying to. It's like there were some big things that happened between the 40s and the 60s. I can't say that a white woman in the 90s is going to be as cognizant of the social differences that have occurred between the 90s and the teens, unless it's going to be, oh my gosh, how is this person president?
No, I think it's just going to be like, what is this internet you speak of?
Yeah, but
what is this social media you speak of?
Honestly, I say that too. Then again, I am from the 90s, so
he's a time traveler, people.
Yeah, well, yes, I am. We are all time travelers.
I know. Second by second. Yes,
second by second. We are always moving towards the future. Going backwards, that's the hard one. But yeah, so I mean, the idea of her being a woman out of time, I think it's possible, but I also think it's a cop out. Now they have said that there will be a reason why she hasn't aged since the 90s. So maybe that's their reason, although that's a dumb reason, because she's a freaking superhuman. Superhumans don't need to age that much. And granted, she will be aging as we do future Captain Marvel films. So maybe that, I mean, basically, if they're thinking that many levels up, although not for nothing, Samuel L. Jackson is going to be like 28 in this movie. So
yeah, but that I believe that
it's not like it's beyond technological ability.
No, but I think that process is expensive. I don't think they want to do that for Brie Larson every movie, every time she appears.
Well, there's an interesting argument, which is that Brie Larson is largely CGI most of the time that she's out there.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's probably worse if you got to de-age somebody or.
Well, they don't have to de-age her that much for a while, Philip.
I know. Yeah.
They got like a good 10, 20 years out of this lady where, science and makeup can do just fine to keep her being Captain Marvel if she wants the job, one thing we can say is that, people that work for a living as actors, they certainly go and they do that 8 hours a day of digging ditches to have that perfect rock lake body. And it's hard work, but they pay you well for it. Yeah. Honestly, if you paid me $1 million a film, I did a film every 2 years, and I had to. And the thing is that every day I had to go to the gym for 4 to 8 hours a day. I'd go to the gym 4 to 8 hours a day. I would. Oh. It's a lot of money. It's more than I'm making now, and I got to do. And honestly, there's a gym in a much closer commute than what I'm going to now. So you know what? I'll take that gig.
There's TVs there usually, right?
Oh, I can listen to podcasts.
Exactly.
Hear about that Quasar podcast, The Quantum Zone.
Or that Kelly Thompson interview. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not on my feed yet. I'm waiting. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, it's not up yet, but it will.
Okay, well, yeah. So for those listening now, look for the Kelly Thompson interview.
That's right.
We ask about the West Coast Avengers crossover. I'm sure we don't get specifically into the Digger because that goes into the weeds. You never want to ask someone who's in that business.
I mean, check it out. I don't want to give too much away. Check it out, but I mean, she couldn't go too much in specifics.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get the crossover in. I just want Digger and Gwenpool to meet because there's so few like non-antagonistic fourth wall breakers in there that can be. And honestly, I think bringing Digger in as a fourth wall breaker that can actually like maybe even help Gwen to reclaim her powers. It's such a nice arc, you know.
It's just, I don't know. I a lot of stuff might be happening. Doesn't it look like this War of the Realms is going to be like a line-wide thing? Like it's affecting it. I thought I saw something like, oh yeah, here's Daredevil and War of Realms. So I'm assuming it's going to hit everybody.
Well, the last time they got to Asgard, we got Fear itself. So
yeah,
I'm sure it's. Here's what I'll say: it's obviously not going to be the kind of thing that it just gets left to one realm.
Yeah.
And we see this in our Avengers Thor essentially crossover.
Yeah.
Because this is basically two books that are telling one story.
Well, it's kind of like the Avengers story is like the overall, and then like for Thor, you kind of shrink down to focus on one of the characters.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I had problems with both books. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah. And I'm going to say this. If that's what War of the Realms is offering, I'm not sure. Honestly, freaking War Thor was what I wanted for War of the Realms. Freaking Volstagg. And still, I haven't heard from Volstagg. I want to know what that guy's up to. I miss Volstagg.
I wonder if maybe that's going to be a War of the Realms thing if he gets unleashed and in that somewhere.
Well, I don't think he's coming back to his hammer, but
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to deal with Volstagg. There's a lot to unpack, and I think it kind of got short-shrifted. He's still alive though. He's healing. I don't know if we're going to get jolly old Volstagg back. Although, there is this argument. Because Volstagg is, of course, based off of Falstaff. And there is this argument that the reason he is so jovial and so gregarious and, to an extent, so afraid of war is that he has seen so much blood already. And to take that, the clown who cries story to its logical conclusion, I would love to see the Volstagg concept explored there. Now, my real hope is that when we get to Avengers 4 Electric Galore, and we do get to our Asgardians, and we do get Valkyrie and Lady Sif back, I hope, they're going to be leading the new Warriors 3 with Volstagg's daughters. Volstagg's daughters, or throw in one of his sons there too, as the Volstagg Warriors 3. That because Volstagg was the only one with kids, and all of the Warriors 3 are dead. So you got to bring in this. You got to have a Warriors 3, and to have Volstagg's 3 other children, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
and and you could do Sif. You could just have one of them because there is one who is. Like she was in Lady Sif's book. I forget her name because there are like 14 of them. But it would be nice to have her and Valkyrie and Lady Sif sort of become the new Warriors 3, ready for DC Plus or sorry, not DC Plus, Disney Plus.
Disney Plus,
Disney Plus. So yeah, I'd love to see that. But what Captain Marvel does, I'm not quite sure. We're off of Captain Marvel already. We're talking about the I'm getting overlapping here. But getting back to Avengers, because let's talk Avengers first, and we'll talk Thor.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Good.
Kazar cannot breathe underwater.
I know.
Why are they? It was a thing for me. Kazar cannot breathe. Like you're sending Kazar into a hostile environment. Okay, but it's a hostile environment filled with water. And it's not like the Atlanteans are like 10 feet below the surface.
Yeah, I know.
If the Atlanteans are 10 feet below the surface, then, okay, yeah, that makes sense. They're like in the Marinara Trench here,
I just think they want to show like how much of a badass he is. And I'm just, yeah, I get it.
Honestly, yeah. And again, having him be a BA is not a problem.
Make it believable.
Then, like have him take a breathing apparatus.
Exactly.
I'll even give you. He's good with 8 billion atmospheres of pressure. Sure, why not? Why not? I'll give that to you. When I first thought that, I said, did I think that was Kazar, but that's actually Bloodstone? Because Bloodstone, I said, Bloodstone, go ahead. And what's weird about it is, and this is the weirdest thing about it is, they just recruited Hale. the Gorilla Man,
Yeah.
who we know is immortal.
Mm.
And it's like, if I wanted to send someone into a hostile environment, wouldn't I send the guy who literally cannot die? He literally cannot die because he's under. That's the thing. It's like, obviously he might not want to go underwater, but the fact of the matter is, it's not like he's gonna drown. He's got the power of the gorilla force. Although here's something I got to say. This is going to be interesting. Is if what's his name? Mgatu. I forget exactly how you pronounce it, but the guy who leads the gorilla tribe.
Okay.
You're going to bring the avatar of the gorilla spirit into this story. And Mbaktu is, honestly, he got a great redemption in the film. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they're going to do more with him on that redemption arc. And you bring this character, this white man with the power of the gorilla, who maybe doesn't even want it. And you could say, you could be that idea that if he were to kill Hale, he could be the gorilla man. Where are we going with this?
I don't know.
Where are we going with this?
There's a lot of. There were a few little problems with this issue because it's like Black Panther.
There's a lot of problems the more you think about it.
They're taking that late '80s, early '90s idea of the Avengers need a support staff, but but the one Black Panther's putting together, it's all superpowered people like Gorilla Man and even John Jameson's in here as the Man Wolf. You got American.
Oh, I like that. I like Man Wolf. And so now it's canon. He can just turn into the Man Wolf whenever he wants. Which actually, well, that was established in the She-Hulk book because the previous Man Wolves he hadn't fully embraced the crystal.
Yeah,
he got on the moon crystal. Sure, why not?
But I've been getting American Eagle, Dr. Nemesis, Fat Cobra from Iron Fist.
I love Fat Cobra, and he's not dead.
Yes.
The last I heard of Fat Cobra, he was dead. He was a character created so they could kill him, but now he's back. Thank you, Franklin Richards. You did one thing right.
I don't think it was Franklin. I'm trying to remember. I think it was during Damnation. I think because Iron Fist was in this basically hell realm. I believe was there others that came back, but was that where Fat Cobra might have not been in hell. He might have went into hell with Danny. I don't know.
Okay, I thought that because I know that Fat Cobra got introduced when they were doing the other immortal weapons.
Yes, right? Yes.
Oh, there's other immortal weapons, Danny. Not just one Iron Fist. I know we haven't mentioned this for the last 30 years, but as it turns out, you're not the only one just like you.
You're not the first Iron Fist. You're not even the first white man Iron Fist.
Yeah, that's well. We talk about that in the last episode of the Iron Cast. So make sure you check it out
every Friday, people.
Every Friday, apparently that's what I'm on. So watch it. Listen.
Okay. Here's my big thing with the Avengers. It's there's a big vampire problem. So Black Panther sends Wasp to get Blade.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's a big, huge, vampires are supernatural for the most part. If you have a big supernatural problem, why aren't we bringing Doctor Strange back in?
Well,
I mean, you can bring Blade in too, but why why isn't Doctor Strange your first call?
Well, you want me to really canon this for you? Who brought back the vampires, Phil?
Oh.
Yeah, good old Victor Strange. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all because he just couldn't let his brother die. And not for nothing, I think didn't he tear up the actually anti-vampire thing?
I think something happened where for years Marvel didn't have vampires. Then well
no, because he got rid of them with the page from the Darkhold.
Yeah.
And then I think because it's the Book of the Darkhold, because the Book of the Vishanti and the Book of the Darkhold, they are equal parts, but one is light magic, one is dark magic. Yeah. I wonder if we'll ever get the Book of Vishanti in the MCU.
I don't know, maybe.
Well, I would assume Doctor Strange has it, so.
All right.
I'm sure he'd love to get his hands on the Darkhold. But anyway.
We only got a couple minutes. Let's jump to Thor number 9.
Okay, yeah. So Thor number 9 was better than Avengers. And let me just be clear. I loved Avengers.
Yeah.
It pulled me out a lot. It pulled me out, and I like Bro, our new tech guy. So I think that's the best part of it is Bro. Also, I didn't like the fact that apparently Mobius now doesn't know why vampires want to capture him. Because after Dominoes, we know why vampires wanted to capture him to release the thing. Oh, maybe now it's like, well, like the last time they did it was this. This might be something else, you know?
Yeah, well, I think Jason Aaron always wants to go like big and huge, and sometimes it pulls you out, but
yeah, I think this is a good episode for talking about how we see worlds, like, and how what we see as the world may not be real. Because here's the thing, the whole Thor She-Hulk scene.
With training.
I really that seemed very much how an ex sees the next girlfriend and her ex together. Both her ex is awful and the new girlfriend is awful.
She's a big green monster, yes.
Yeah, honestly, it just seems yeah, I mean Solomon just seems
Ross Solomon.
Yeah, Ross Solomon just seems very off in the whole thing.
She's another member of Black Panther's team now.
Yeah, she's an agent of Wakanda.
And unlike Kazar, she took the suit that that Black Panther provided.
Yeah, well, which makes sense, but
yes.
And then she decides rather than calling in the Avengers, which is what she's supposed to do, she decides to fight. Which first off,
Frost Giant
going rogue. Yeah, going rogue. I mean, and it's weird to me. It's like this idea that they found out that Malekith has a black Bifrost. Don't we know that already?
Or if we don't, can't we just assume he has some kind of teleportation something or other?
But I gotta feel like he has like explicitly said, "Call the black Bifrost" in front of other people. Like repeatedly,
or was it Thor? Because Thor's not always the quickest on the update.
He wasn't the only one there. That's what I'm saying. Like someone's got to know Malekith has a black Bifrost, that he's built a black Bifrost, and it just seems weird. Like that was the big reveal, and then they reveal that even without Raz, Cole finds out about it too.
Oh yeah, Odin's brother. Yeah.
And here's what I'll say. My favorite thing about this is actually to get Kull as a force of the gods, not necessarily a villain.
Yes.
And this is one of these things I think that is too often the case with these stories, where you have a god like Pluto, or you have a god like Kull, and they just want to cast him as the villain.
Yeah.
You have a god that you want to cast as a villain, even though gods of these things aren't necessarily villains, because they're not supposed to be, sitting there. They're not supposed to be Genghis Khan trying to conquer the world. They're supposed to be an esoteric concept controlling a certain thing of the universe.
I think that's where they're going, is they're trying to show that he has more layers. He may seem mean and nasty, but, there's, even if it's wrong, he has reasoning in his head why he,
Yeah, well, exactly, and this is what I'm hoping we get a redemption arc for Kull.
I just wonder if he's going to sacrifice himself to save everything, or
although that's always different for gods.
Yeah, I was going to say he'll be back in a couple of years.
Exactly, it's like Ares is back. As Ares said, it's different for gods.
Another Ragnarok, they'll all be back.
Yeah, we've already had one.
Oh, we had a few.
Yes. Although in Marvel, they're always canon. There's no question, is it canon? It's all canon. It's all canon.
This is trying to fix that in DC. He's trying.
Well, one hopes so. One hopes he can bring. So this is the thing. Oh, by the way, big congrats to David Walker. He's going back to teaching. He's now Professor Walker.
Ooh. So a real professor?
A professor that is teaching at a university, yes. He will be there's no such thing as a real professor. There's only honorific you receive. Now, someone can give you the honorific professor, or you can simply take it, as I did. It has meaning if it's given, but it is meaningless if you simply take it. But there's no law that says you can't take it. So, you know, it's like eating berries in the park. Sometimes they're poison, sometimes they're delicious, and there's no law against you finding out which is which. Don't eat berries in the park, kids.
All right, let's cut it there. It's been about an hour, so let's cut it.
It's been about an hour. Let's call it a day. Yeah. And yeah, we have to all obey our mistress, who controls all things, and we are humbled before her greatness. So, Philip, if people would like to talk about our great mistress and how awesome she is, and how they could never beat her even if they chose to fight her, how can they find you?
If you want to get a hold of me, you can always email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am at nightwingpdp. And remember, follow Superconnectivity on Facebook, on Twitter, @SuperConnectPod. And our voicemail, 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email, whether we're awesome past once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet things when I'm not doing podcasts at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsscr. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for connecting with us this week. Please super connect with us again next. Good night.
Good night. But look at that. That's like an hour right there.
There you go. Perfect.
Night.
You know, Lilith gives me an order. I follow.
Cracking the whip.
I only follow orders.
I was just following orders.
Yes, well, no, that's what we do. It's funny because it's actually referencing one of the darkest times in human history.
I was going to say,
and
okay.
That's what makes it funny.
Oh, I thought I was going to say, okay, Schultze.
Yeah.
Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah, Hogan's Heroes. So that would be.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Nothing. Yes.